Today I'm going to show you how to use smart sequences in Lab Monster Toolkit to practice defensive option selects. So to get started, I've got my hitbox on player 3. I've got my toolkit hooked up, it's frame based. We've got player 1 and player 2 on mirror input. And I've recorded 3 input sequences. So I'll show you what those input sequences are. There's a reset sequence, which simply hits the reset training button. There is an overhead option from Thor that looks like this. And there's a low option from Thor that looks like this. So we've got 3 recordings, a reset, and a high and a low option. So let's build a smart sequence. So we're going to open the smart sequence editor. And this may look a little confusing at first, but it's pretty straightforward. We've got a start node and an end node, and there's a next node. And we can add a new node via the next node. We're going to add the reset sequence. So there's 3 node types other than the start and end. There's play, wait, and random branch. And we're going to use all 3 of those. So we're going to go to play node. This is the reset node. It gets added right here. We're going to select the sequence that gets played, and we're just going to select this reset sequence. And then we're going to set the next node from this. And the next node, we're going to add a new node, and we're going to add a wait node. And so we're going to randomly wait between 15 and 30 frames. Or 30 frames, yeah. Next, we're going to add a random branch node. And this is going to have 2 branches. So we're going to click this to add a new branch. The branches will have equal weight, so weight 1 is fine there. Then we're going to create a play sequence node. This will be the light kick overhead option. So we'll click that, and we'll click the light option. And then we're going to make this loop back to the start. Then we're going to add a node for the other branch, and we're going to call this the heavy kick option. And we're going to select the sequence for the heavy kick option. And then we're going to make the next node be the start node. So we moved a little quickly here. I'm going to rename this to be light kick option, so that's a little more obvious. So what we've got here is basically it's a graph. It starts at the start. The start resets the training, then it waits a random number of frames between 15 and 30. I'll make this between 15 and 45. This is just to make you not aware of which recording you're actually reacting to, and it's to just sort of change up your timings, make it so that you're reacting to what's going on a little more. Then we have this branch node, which selects our options that we want to go to. And then these are our 2 options, and each of these options loop back to the start. So let's save this as smart sequence and close out of this. Now, what we're going to do is smart sequences can be loaded into the normal playback sequence slot. So we're just going to load the smart sequence into player 1, and I'm going to be player 2. Now, the reason I want to be player 2 is because player 1 is the only player that can hit the reset button in training mode. So we're going to change this to playback sequence, and then I bound a hotkey for play sequence here, so hit that hotkey and start doing this. So what the thing with this Thor OS, if you look up, my inputs are on the right, there's a different timing for when it hits overhead versus when it hits low. So what I'm doing is I'm looking for the wind up, and I'm delaying a down press with my back hold. So I'm basically holding back, and then I'm switching to down back. Now this is, I didn't get it that time. This is a pretty simple defensive OS, and this is a pretty simple offensive option. There are a lot of more complicated mixes that you can do, but this is just for the sake of demonstrating what we can do with Lab Monster Toolkit. Now, why would you want to do it this way? So, even in MVCI, I shouldn't say even in MVCI. MVCI has recording options. MVCI has random replay. So when would you want to use this particular tool? Obviously, smart sequences is a very powerful tool because you can build a complex series of inputs with the node system. So you could have several layers of mix where you basically you could have you could have a branching sequence that leads back into another sequence that leads back into a branching sequence. So you could have several layers of what the opponent is doing. But aside from that, one thing that I find really annoying, especially in this game, is you can't record against a blocking opponent. So if I switch this to be record and I disable player 2 here, if I want to record with Thor against Venom, or actually I have to record with Venom against Thor, excuse me, but if I want to record, Thor isn't blocking. And this hit stop changes pressure sequences. So if the nice thing about using this system is that with Lab Monster Toolkit, you can record on player 1 and set the dummy to auto block, and you can record a sequence that is against a blocking opponent. Another thing you can do is you can obviously set up a sequence in both player 1 and player 2 and work out push block or instant block or whatever defensive options your game has. So you can record a sequence that anticipates a certain push block timing, and you can then practice that push block timing or practice mix-up options to get around that push block timing. There's a lot more fine detail work you can do in how you set up your sequences. And then the final thing that might be the reason you want to do this is you might want to practice defense against a pressure string that you can't do. And so you can either go into the sequence editor and build up, a sequence. Obviously, I'm able to do these sequences, but you can build up a sequence that might have frame-perfect timings that you are unable to execute and record consistently in your game's input editor, or excuse me, in your game's input recorder. And so with Lab Monster Toolkit, you can build those recordings. Or you could have your friend who might also have Lab Monster Toolkit. They can record their inputs if they have a block string that's particularly difficult or particularly sick that you would like to learn how to defend against. And if both of you want to get better and both of you want to improve, they can record that sequence for you and send you the file, and then you can defend against what their recording is, which will just save you time so that you don't have to maybe practice a character that you don't want to learn, but that you need to learn defensive options against. Alright, this has gone a little longer than I want it to. Once again, the Smart Sequence Editor, the node types, there's a random branch node, there's a wait node, and there's a play node. The random branch node, these weights, you can put any number on these weights. It'll sum all of the weights up and give you a random, it'll randomly select based on those weight values. The wait node, obviously there's a minimum wait time and a maximum wait time. You can do this in both the millisecond mode or in the frame-based mode. Just make sure that you're in the right mode for playback, and make sure that your playback sequences that you use also match the mode, because obviously if you're in frame mode, it will start, it will assume all of the time units are your frames, and if you're in millisecond mode, it'll assume they're milliseconds, and it isn't good to mix those. So then finally there's the play sequence node, where you just select your sequence and you're good to go. If you have any questions or comments, concerns, please leave them in the comments below or on the itch.io page comment section. Thank you so much for watching.